Folks, make sure to sit down because this Victoria 3 newsflash will otherwise knock you off your feet. The dev team just explained what exactly is changing for military and warfare in the long-awaited 1.5 open beta, and trust me, oh my god, is it a lot. I will tell you what's going on in a short and concise manner in this video, but I will also be uploading a video tomorrow discussing every single aspect of this in greater detail, so check that out if you are more interested in really chewing through everything. For starters, everything in this video is coming with the start of the open beta on the 28th of August. The open beta, true to form, will be rough around the edges and have a variety of issues with the UI, placeholder images and mechanics not being fully done, which means that you should expect that when you are going in. If you are somebody that would rather just see the finished product, then you will have to wait until roughly the middle of October, which is the scheduled release period for 1.5. The Victoria 3 team has run an open beta in the past to find what works and what doesn't work before the full release of a patch, and I think that this is a very powerful tool. But listen, let's get to the actual meat of the update. What is actually inside of this big 1.5 open beta for Warfare? It's absolutely no secret that Warfare in Victoria 3 is not just different from any other war system in Paradox games, but that it in its current state is also simply far too fragile. Frontlines will split, battles will last too long, you will create pockets without actual effects for supply, raiding convoys is crazy annoying, and so on and so on. There are a great many downsides right now. So now some things are being changed quite radically so that the new system can be freed of these issues. Adjacent allied frontlines, for example, will now act as just one frontline. We've all played in India or Germany and regretted our choices once 15,000 frontlines revealed themselves to us, so this is really good news. Also, when a front progresses, it is now on a state-by-state level. As it is currently, a battle can claim provinces anywhere in its general adjacency. If you're gunning for a particular state to get the war support of your opponent to -100, you have to pray that you get the provinces you need. Similarly, you have to pray that a lost battle does not flip too many provinces, or, well, simply put, the wrong provinces, and doom you for no good reason if you're the defender. The way it will work in 1.5 means that winning a battle will push up how much of the selected state you are occupying, and only when you hit 100% occupation does the frontline actually move and the state actively flips to your side. How many battles you need to take over an entire state is determined by things such as state population, the amount of provinces with difficult terrain in the state, and the number of mobilized battalions left standing in the defender's theater compared to the size of it in total. How the struggle for a particular region is going should now be a lot more apparent, while also being more reasonable. Additionally, as battles only move the frontline if the entire state has been taken by the aggressor, they are also adding new visuals for fought over states, as again the frontline itself of course doesn't move. You can see this right here. This entire topic, much like merging shared frontlines, will mean that the frustration of seeing your war being lost because the enemy flipped a single province in your capital will be completely eliminated. These changes are important, don't get me wrong, as they promise to turn something finicky, fragile and frustrating into something robust enough to, well, simply work. The less trouble this creates, the more can an actually functioning and interesting system on top of it be built. But even with that being as important as it is, the next changes are the things that I am honestly extremely excited about. Managing your generals and admirals is indeed quite tiresome right now, often requiring meticulous attention. The introduction of military formations aims to tackle this exact topic, not just making management easier, but also opening up the floor to many more ideas atop this new system. Instead of armies being tied to generals, generals are now tied to military formations, which also contain the respective military units previously under the generals. This means that you give orders on a higher level and can customize who executes them and with which units. This system is quite similar to how the Hearts of Iron series has solved army structures, although it has to be said that the initial implementation appears to not actually involve any order of battle. This means that the field marshal doesn't actually give commands and then the general or the lieutenant or whoever executes them, but this is definitely something that can be implemented now that they are actually contained within military formations. Personally, this is the first time that I can actually see a full order of battle structure emerging from within Victoria 3's system, and it is something that I have been hoping for a long time. If you recall, even before release I was talking about order of battle and I was talking about military academies, and if we were to get this in the future, then well, it's with this mechanic right there. As it stands, military formations in their 1.5 implementation take away a ton of micro, allow for much more customization, and additionally are in a perfect spot to allow for management of military leaders that is actually meaningful rather than tedious. Alright, now as mentioned, these military formations are new, but so is how you organize the units within them. In the current version of the game, your battalions are equipped in their barracks by you choosing production methods. However, this changes now. Units will be defined in the formation window directly, where you determine what equipment they use and what their makeup is. This will now also mean that, for example, the ships in your navy act like, well, actual ships. Some vessels can be upgraded into others, whereas some simply become obsolete long term. What we can now do is the long sought after customization that Victoria 3 so far lacked. This same depth of customization continues into the mobilization options, which are separate selections that you can make for your army formations and determines just what kind of specific support mechanisms you choose for any particular army. I absolutely adore these changes, as there is now a strategic depth behind these decisions that just could not be taken previously in a system in which troops were semi-randomly assigned to generals rather than in a bespoke manner. Since you can also split army formations as you see fit, you can essentially create, for example, a colonial army and then of course a mainland army. Another big change, and oh my god, am I excited for this, is the fact that units will now have concrete locations. In the current version of Victoria 3, when telling any general to go to a certain frontline, they hang out in limbo for a certain amount of time until they indeed arrive at that frontline. That has always been, well, odd. I think we can all agree on that. Military formations, whether they are ships or armies, will now actually travel to wherever they need to be, and can also be stationed in regions that are not their native headquarters. I can only say, thank God, finally. We will be able to track their movement and hopefully actually be able to, for example, intercept them should they pass through a sea node filled with our navy. While the movement will initially be solely tracked linearly, the open beta is going to receive an update in September, at least that is the plan, in which the armies will then move through roads, railways, sea nodes and so on, meaning they will move like, well, actual armies did historically speaking. Do always keep in mind that a big reason for the success of Napoleon III against Austria in the Italian wars was, well, because he utilized the railway network. On top of all of this, the devs have also reworked naval invasions. A feature that was previously known as Exploit Central now appears to be in a much better place. You will essentially be telling a fleet and a formation to invade a state, and then they will fight over said state similar to how it occurs on a normal frontline, meaning they will make occupation progress until they fully conquer it. If the entire state is occupied, a frontline with neighboring states is established and normal land combat begins. This also means that at the time of the invasion, until this normal frontline is established, the invasion fleet can be intercepted, challenged and potentially eliminated to deal with the threat of the invasion, making it so that not looking at your coast at all times is no longer a death sentence, as getting rid of one's occupied land takes much longer than initially claiming it. This means that invasions will be more viable, but that it also will be much more viable and logical to actually defend against it. And then last but very much not least, we are also getting new frontline graphics, and I'm so wildly excited for those. Instead of only battles triggering frontline graphics, many provinces along a frontline will now have animated groups of troops to show that, for example, your army is focused on a particular area of the frontline. These troop animations are different from any troop animation that we have seen so far in any Paradox game, as they appear to be actual dioramas instead of individual troops, or as it is right now, just some cannons, huts or various other objects. I am super stoked about this, as it should finally bring the visual life to warfare that is currently totally absent. So as you can see, there are massive changes coming here, hopefully making it so that the mechanics themselves are more robust, making it so that it's not as finicky and not as buggy to interact with. And then when it comes to unit customization, I think we have a lot to look forward to, as we are now seeing a much stronger connection between supply, our market economy, and of course the actual result of warfare. I am absolutely stoked about these changes on a mechanical and a visual level. Giving concrete locations to military units while still keeping the frontline system alive is exactly the right step in my eyes, as it finally explores the strengths of this warfare system while pushing back against the weaknesses. I will say, at the end of this video, that a big concern of mine is actually the UI. While it is of course all very work in progress, Vicky 3 has had its fair share of trouble with tough to use UI, and I really do hope that the open beta will end with a good looking and well functioning UI for all of these new mechanics. I will be exploring this entire thing incredibly proactively here on the channel, so if you want to know how things work, if it works, and what else can be done in the future, make sure to subscribe and you will not miss a single video. Folks, I will leave you right here, and see you later, alligator.